I have to be a victim? Well, if I have to anything, then yes, I'm a victim. Is there a way out? And yes, there is. And the way out is to be accountable. And in my experience, accountability is misinterpreted quite a bit. Here's a key of accountability. Accountability is just able to account for how I created this. But here's a key. In accountability, there is no blame for anyone, including myself. It is not about finding fault with anyone, including myself. The moment I go to blame, the moment I go to fault of anybody, even myself, I am being a victim. I am rendering myself powerless, and I will not learn anything. I'll just be right about how I or someone else is wrong. So accountability has nothing to do with blame or fault. Accountability is just looking back in time at how I created this. What did I assume? What did I assume about myself, the economy, my family, others, etc., etc., etc.? Were there red flags that I ignored in others, in situations? What did I deny? What did I just want to totally deny that it was even there, even though I knew it was something that was burgeoning, maybe ready to explode? So we go back in time, but we look at time, at the choices and decisions we made along the way without blame or without fault. We just look at them from a neutral perspective. Oh, I assumed if I did this, they would do that. What did I deny? Well, I denied there was something in between myself and my wife. There were feelings that I felt disconnected, but I denied it because I was just hoping it would go away and fix itself. What did I not want to see? What were the conversations I told myself about things? So we go back and look at those choices and decisions as far back as we got to go. So look at that. Maybe I go back a week, a month, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. We can go way back to when we were little kids and looking at the choices and decisions that I made along the way, such that I arrived at this moment and this is how I dealt with it. But there is no blame, there is no fault. So in accountability, it's never about the other person or circumstance. So the question is, how did I create this? What were my beliefs? What were my conversations in my mind? What were the stories I was telling myself? Was I even in my mind setting it up that it wasn't going to work out, so I was telling myself good stories that I could tell others so that when it didn't work out, I could look good in the process? What am I learning from this situation such that I can change things in my life? And then where do I go from here? But let's look at those four things. It's never about the other person or circumstance. Never. It is never, and I mean never. And when I do this in a training room, I underline that never, 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 because the moment I make it about the other person or circumstance, then I'm a victim. It doesn't mean that I ignore what is about people and circumstances. It doesn't mean that I'm in denial of it. It just means it isn't about that. It's about how I deal with it. It's about how I deal with it, which goes to, how did I create this? Now, when we present that in a training environment, typically what people look at is, what did I do? What did I do that I created this? And if you remember back when I was talking about ego and spirit and the action, I may have mentioned something to the idea that action itself is irrelevant in some ways. Because what I did is simply a symptom of what's going on inside of me in a lot of times. So it's a symptom if I want to make sure I do it right of an action of, I may be mimicking other people and how they did it. So my purpose is to just mimic them, to do it right, to look good. But it's not really to get the result I want. In fact, I don't care about that. The result I care about is looking good. So that way if things don't work out, at least I look good. Or in the training environment where we've had people have time commitments. And if they didn't meet those time commitments, we invite them to be accountable. And a lot of times they'll say, well, yeah, I was here, I didn't count on traffic, so next time I'll leave earlier. And that may work as far as that goes in being on time. But the bigger picture is we're not really looking at them learning how to tell time. But it's really about realizing we're more powerful than we believe. And the ego will take something like time, and if we don't believe we can be on time, how would we ever believe we could have the bigger dreams and aspirations that we want? So when somebody says, oh yeah, I was late, I acknowledge I was late, I don't want to make an excuse about traffic, etc., etc., etc. That sounds really good, but it's not really getting to the core of accountability. We might even go back to what were the conversations going on inside of me? What are the thoughts and beliefs I have about me that might open the door for me to sabotage myself? So maybe I have a dream that I want to have the most loving relationship I could ever imagine possible. Yet my belief says I'm unlovable. So I go out and I meet somebody and they end up hurting me. Or then I meet somebody else and they end up dumping me. And I meet somebody else and they end up, they'll stay with me, but they don't really emotionally connect with me, and on and on and on it goes. And I say, well, I just got to meet the right person. So I must be going to the wrong places to meet the right person. So I'll go to different places and I'll go to other venues and I'll look in other areas to meet the right person. Yet this pattern keeps repeating over and over and over again. Well, is it possible that I'm more powerful than I believe, and because I believe maybe from experiences that happened way in the past that I'm unlovable, and I want to be right about that, and I feel that's more real to me than the relationship of my dreams? Is it possible that I will keep attracting those people in my life that will end up in disappointment just so I can be right? Because at least if I'm right, it's better than nothing. Because maybe in me and my conversations and my beliefs and my energy, I don't believe I can really have that, so let's mess it up here. Maybe I have a dream that I want to be financially free, but if I don't believe I can be on time to a training, if I don't believe I can handle that, well, you know what? There's my justification to give up on my dream to be financially free. So in looking at accountability and looking at the choices and decisions I made, it isn't just about looking at what I did, because what I did may be symptomatic. It may have been, the doing may have been a sabotaging doing. So if I made investments and the investments went bad, well, what are you learning? Well, never invest money again, put it under my mattress. That may not align with really what I want. But I can guarantee I won't lose money to someone else again. I'll just put the money under my mattress, and people do that. And their consolation prize is they can say, well, at least I didn't lose any money. But notice that's a consolation prize. And as we look at ourselves in accountability and what are we learning, and we look at what we did, our doing may be symptomatic of something deeper inside of us, our beliefs inside of us. Let's say I can't have it anyway. Maybe it has to do with experiences we've had in life where we made decisions about ourselves and decided that we're not worth it, that things aren't going to work out anyway. I grew up in a home where, with loving mom and dad, but the mantra of we can't afford it was said over and over and over again, and that became part of me. And so for a long time, it was a struggle to move past some of my financial beliefs. Not because I was doing the wrong thing, but somewhere along the way I would be sabotaging myself because I've got to be right that whatever I want, I can't afford it. So we can either learn here and shift things, or we can let it happen over and over again, because life in its loving way will continue to serve up the lesson for us, because we're actually serving it up. We're actually putting out an energy to ask for that, such that it'll come up again and again and again. We may not be consciously asking to go broke, but we're asking for something such that we can learn a lesson. We may not be asking for someone to die, but we may be saying, I want to really know the value of relationships. And that's how it's served up for us to learn. Somebody dies or somebody walks out on us. We may not be asking to be jobless, but maybe somewhere inside of it we're saying, I wish I had a different career. And instead of looking for a career and going out and exploring, we're just waiting and waiting and waiting for somebody to come to us. And so our hand is forced by the universe and it says, okay, you want a different career? Here, you're fired. Now go get a different career. And we say, life's unfair. I was fired in this economy, blah, 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 blah. So in looking at accountability, it's never about the other person. How did I create this? Not just what did I do? What were my beliefs? What were my conversations inside of me? Is there somewhere in me that I was sabotaging myself such that I was asking for something to happen that would get in my way? What am I learning? And maybe sometimes it is, what did I do? But not always. In fact, most of the time, it has a lot more to do with your conversations and beliefs than it does with what you did. And then, where do I go from here? Where do I go from here so that I can move forward? Will it happen again? It may, depending on our willingness to learn. That's up to us, and that's up to us in being accountable. So, take a look. Take a look at some of your victim stories. Put these 4 parts in. It's never about the other person. How did I create this? What were my thoughts? What were my conversations? What were my beliefs? What were my actions? What am I learning? Where do I go from here? And take some of these stories that prior had been a victim and start to turn them around and now share what's the accountable version. This is one of the most liberating concepts you'll get. This is a principle of freedom. We'll see you next time.